Buonasera. Good evening, my dear friends of the Rimini meeting. Good evening, dear friends who are following us from over 100 squares and listening places from all over the world. Good afternoon from Francesca Fabbri Fellini. This is a special evening on the occasion of this special edition to remember the artist and the friend Federico Fellini. I am really honored to have been asked by the president of the Rimini meeting and by the art director Otello Cenci of the meeting to think of an evening dedicated to the man of the 5 Oscar, the so-called Mr. Cinema, the so-called cinema man for the Americans, Federico Fellini, the man who changed the seventh art forever. So this is an evening on collaboration with the city of Rimini and the Cinema Archive of Rimini. This year has changed so many events on the world, but out of magic, during this special edition, I can tell you what extraordinary man my Uncle Kiko, the uncle whom I met in 1965, the first time, during a magical occasion, the day of my baptism. So, the magician of world cinema and his lady Giulietta Masini. That was the 6th of June, 65. And that meeting changed my life forever. Now I am the last heir of this extraordinary man that this extraordinary world of cinema envies us. And this evening we're going to remember this great man. We're going to remember many of his fantastic sentences. Nothing is known, but everything is imagined, so that the young boys and girls meeting him for the first time become curious from the big personalities of world cinemas remembering him. And maybe tomorrow they will choose what movie, what film of the big Maestro they can see, they can watch for the first time. You see the young girl there was me, and the world with him was a wonder. I think the title of this meeting is fantastic. Devoid of wonder, we remain deaf to the sublime. This is really fantastic. It is really, it perfectly matches the philosophy of life of Uncle Federico. Uncle Federico always had his own way of looking at wonder, and he taught me that throughout my life I would have had the same gaze that children have. So a gaze full of wonder that induces you, for example, to always basically have wonder. She always suggested that I should keep that gaze. So this is a celebration, and this extraordinary celebration in which we will remember Giulietta, his life partner. Giulietta would say this fantastic thing: Federico is an artist. He's like the sun and the sky, so he's constantly on the move. Roberto Benigni, when Uncle Federico died in 1993, Roberto Benigni spoke with this sentence that really struck me. I thought that Federico was like oil, that he could never be missing, but he was wrong. But actually this is a celebration, and I was told, okay, this is going to be an evening, a session with a lot of streaming events. There can be very few people in present. You can have only one next to you. And so I asked myself, okay, one person, but I want to have a special one. I want to have a night of dreams, a great photography director, a great cinematographer who with light changed the masterpieces of the world of cinema. So to this evening with me, I invited Blasco Giurato. Thank you, Blasco. Actually, this kind of introduction, I've never had such a great introduction. Thank you, Francesca. Thanks to the Rimini meeting for the invitation. And thanks to you, Francesca, for actually appointing me as your night of dreams for this extraordinary evening. Thank you very much. So let's now move on. I wanted to invite you here with me because you you had actually what you term a degree in cinematography by working in a fantastic movie by Federico Fellini, which is The Clowns, and that was back in 1972. What could be felt on that stage, on that set, which was, I mean, your DNA? Like I told you, I got a degree with Federico Fellini. That set, for me, marked the beginning of my career. Federico Fellini taught me what cinema is, and I really learned everything from him. Federico Fellini was not only a director of actors or costumes or lights. I mean, he would deal with everything. He took care of everything. And the magic thing was that he was also a great director when it comes to the camera. He was capable of taking shots that were very, very difficult. And in spite of this, he would inspire you so much safety and certainty that everything difficult would become easy. Is there any nice anecdote that you would like to share with us? Well, there was a moment, and I think it was exactly in that moment that I got my degree from Federico Fellini. We were shooting The Clowns, and we were shooting these old clowns walking around in the suburbs of Paris. So we went to a nice villa, very nice villa with a garden, to interview an old clown, 85-year-old clown from Livorno, who was no longer in activity. We prepared all of our equipment, so he would sit next to me, slightly, a couple of steps ahead of me, actually, fortunately. And this old, tender man would come to me, and he started saying, Monsieur Fellini, I feel nostalgic about my old Livorno, my town Livorno. And in this interview, he would say kind of banal things. But then I knew that Federico Fellini would eventually transform all the things that this gentleman was saying. And while he was talking, I noticed that his wife, a very nice old lady, was watching from a window. She looked like the fairy in Cinderella. So I basically moved my camera and directed the camera to the lady. And then I came back to the old man who had started to cry. So basically I had forgotten to grasp, so to say, the very first moment of his cry. So at the end of the interview, Federico Fellini said, Blasco, did you notice how wonderful the moment was when he started to cry? And so I kind of trembled and said, Mr. Fellini, unfortunately, I didn't manage to catch the beginning of that cry. And actually, I think I was one of the very few people who saw Federico Fellini angry. I had the privilege, and I was also terrified by the fact that he was so angry. So the following 3 days were really terrible because, I mean, you don't see... We weren't able to see the material immediately. We had to wait for it to be prepared. After 3 days, all the material we shot came back, and so we went and watched it in this wonderful cinema on the Champs-Élysées. That was a very big, huge cinema. So we started watching the material. We had Mr. Fellini, Danilo Donati, the cinematographer, and they were all sitting one next to the other. And I had occupied the last seat in the back near the corridor because I was in terror of what could have happened. As a matter of fact, in the previous 3 days, Fellini would not talk to me. Actually, once in a while, I had I was so much in confidence with him that I would afford, so to say, to take some personal stances with him. So, for example, sometimes I would take a camera and started shooting in among the actors. And this was an action that Federico Fellini liked a lot. In other words, I had acquired, in spite of my young age, I was 30 years old, I had quite so much freedom that I could dare doing certain things. So at the end of the presentation of the material, we had this interview. So I saw the camera that was shooting at the old lady and then came back to the old man that had started to cry. So Federico Fellini would stand up, made a lot of congratulations to everybody, to Danilo, and then he came to me. And well, I still can see this man that would become bigger and bigger as soon as he approached me. So he would, in the end, stand up in front of me. We were both in silence. I was ready to, leave the set. He looked at me and said, "Have you seen how many beautiful ideas I have given you?" So this was Fellini. This was Federico Fellini. Thank you very much, Blasco. Thank you for this Amarcord that you've given us. Just to tell you how important it was for Federico, just to tell you how important cinematography and light for Fellini were, there is a book entitled Fare un film, so making a movie. During this session, I will tell you a lot of interesting anecdotes. So the first suggestion is that you go and look for this publication, Fare un film. This is an extraordinary book in which Federico Fellini talks about himself. And commenting about light, he says that the movie is written with light. The style is expressed through light. And for a pictoric director like Federico Fellini, I believe that the cinematographer is the kind of brush that you use to produce that painting. Lots of different important personalities worked with him, Lorazzo, Lotunno. We would like to remember them all. So I call the friends, Blasco. They are also friends of yours, Blasco. And because it is as if we were sitting in our own sitting room and conversing. So I would like to start from a friend that you worked with. You worked on 4 films with him, Il Camorrista, Nuovo Cinema Paradisi, and other films like, for example, Everyone is Fine. Of course, I'm talking about the great director Giuseppe Tornatore. Everyone is Fine is a wonderful movie. Marcello Mastroianni would star there. We had the music of the great Ennio Morricone, whom we remember with the whole of our hearts. So the great, the mesmerizing Ennio Morricone on the stage. So Ennio Morricone, and we have a big applause from all over the world. This is an Italian excellency. This great, extraordinary man, this mesmerizing composer who followed all of his music from the very beginning. And I would like to remind you that this was a great friend of the Rimini meeting, and in 1999 here in Rimini there was a concert called Morricone Directs Morricone. That is a fantastic memory for us all. So we are here to remember Ennio, to remember Marcello. I would like to leave the floor to Peppuccio Tornatore. He spent these nice words to remember Fellini. Dear Francesca, thank you very much for your invitation. Unfortunately, I didn't manage to be present in Rimini, but actually I really very much wanted to participate in this celebration for the 100th birthday, the first 100 years of Federico Fellini. And I'm saying the first ones because I'm sure there will be many more of celebrations of the kind in the future. And that is because the art of Federico Fellini and the importance of this great personality for our history. For many Italians, it's really very important. It has left an indelible sign. And even today, even if you think that you've watched his movies several times and you think you've learned them by heart, still, if you watch them again, you'll find that they are completely different, that they have something new to offer. So these are renewed reflections. These are works of art which are still alive. They keep on transforming themselves. They keep on changing. And this is probably the very special aspect of Federico Fellini's art and of his gaze. This is a gaze that is constantly renovating itself. Both in the context of his cinema, both for us directors working in his sector, both for those who do not work in that same sector. And that is because the gaze by Federico Fellini casts light on those who are fascinated by the Maestro of cinema. Fellini's cinema is a visionary cinema, but I think it is a very interesting form of cinema. And the other specialty is that actually his art is very subjective, it's very personal, and yet his narration always makes it possible for us to adopt a point of view which seems our own, and this is a miracle that appears only with the great personalities. So we will always celebrate Federico Fellini in the future, also in the next centuries. And we will rightly say that ours is the country of Dante Alighieri, of Giacomo Leopardi, and Italy is the country of Federico Fellini. So happy birthday, Federico, and hurrah for Federico Fellini. Thank you very much, Peppuccio. You know, Blasco, I am very grateful to all the friends who wanted to be with us this evening. First and foremost because they are all very busy, and then also because these are people who normally do not like to appear in such circumstances. They prefer to sit behind the camera. This evening, we will often talk about circus. We will often remember circus. And there was a person who loved the world of circus very much, the clowns and the history of clowns, and that was the great critic Mario Verdone. Mario Verdone was one of the most important personalities of Italian cinema, and he was one of the dearest friends of Federico Fellini. His son is a friend of mine, a friend of yours, and that's the great Carlo Verdone, who also wanted to remember Federico Fellini in the following way. Dear Francesca, I am really very happy to be with you this evening to remember and celebrate a great man, a great artist whose name was Federico Fellini. Federico Fellini, for me, was the most important poet of images that Italy has ever had, and he will always be like that. I think he has no heirs in this. I mean, his mind was a superior mind in terms of sensitivity, introspection. He was a great scenographer. He was a great costumist. He was a great set designer and a fantastic psychologist. And I don't think there are personalities that are like him. From the point of view of my training, actually, I learned from him. The first films I saw were the Vitelloni, the White Shake, the 8½, and others, as well as all other movies that I loved. I learned a lot from him, from the way that he would love his characters. Fellini never judges his characters, but he rather highlights them. He caresses them. There's never a bad in his films. I mean, the bad feature, being bad, is made ridiculous. There's never a bad person. There's never a very bad character in his films. There's always a mood of fairy tale, the atmosphere of a fairy tale. So Federico Fellini was a fantastic poet. And I am really very, very happy that I have the privilege to have this picture. That's me and Federico. He came and visited me in Rome during the rehearsals of Barbiere di Siviglia. He came and visited me, and then the following day he wrote a wonderful letter to me, and there was a very nice gesture towards a young artist. So I think there was a very great gesture, sublime, very paternal, very tender. I will always love him because he represented the best period of our Italy. He represented Italy to the best. I don't know what Fellini could do today. I don't think that Fellini could find any poetry more. So we should keep Fellini for that period, a period that he was capable of grasping, of catching in a poetic way. So thank you very much, and a big hug to Francesca. Thank you. Thank you, Carlo. Very nice. He was really dear. He is another genius of our cinema. And he himself also follows his films from the beginning to the end, like Federico did. Now, Blasco, I would like actually to get on a time machine and go back to the 1960s and 1970s. Have you ever been photographed by paparazzi with some nice lady, for example, in Via Veneto in Rome? So let us not talk about this with this great, wonderful man. And now I would like to actually see a present coming to us from a dear friend. In the 1960s, there was a paparazzo. His name was Carlo Riccardi. He was a friend of Federico Fellini. Carlo Riccardi actually happened to be near to Federico Fellini during his working life, and his son today manages the photo archive Riccardi that has over 3 million films. It is a very important archive. It is registered in the Arts Superintendency for the Lazio region. It is of a heritage of national interest because it covers 75 years of the Italian art history. And in this given moment, there is an exhibition, an ongoing exhibition in Rome in that archive. The exhibition will open next Monday and will be open up to the 31st of March, and it remembers actually Federico Fellini and Alberto Sordi, two icons of our cinema. So I would like to browse with you some of the pictures and share them with you, share them with the 120 squares in the world. We also have the Gully Theatre. That's actually one of the squares who are currently connected with us. So let's start from this wonderful picture. There was an evening with Giulietta Masina, Franca Marzis, Federico, the Nastri d'Argento awarding ceremony. And here a wonderful picture, and please let us give a big applause for Monica Vitti with Alberto Sordi. That was a shot of 1960. And then again Alberto Sordi. I believe that Carlo Verdone is really the artistic heir of Alberto Sordi. And then Federico Fellini, a cigarette he actually was smoking. This is also yet another important picture of 1964. Federico was awarded with a prize for 8.5 by the Critics Association of from the United States. Then here with Ingrid Bergman, Davide Donatello in 1957 for The Knights of Cabiria. Then Federico in yet another shot in 1971 during the shots of Roma. And then this is a very more recent picture, Carlo Riccardi and Federico. This is a wonderful picture that deserves an applause, that has been seen throughout the world. The couple was coming back from Los Angeles with the best Oscar for La Strada, 1957, Giulietta Masini and Federico Fellini. I remember this picture because there is a peculiarity. The category Best Foreign Film, Best Foreign Movie was created for that film. So it stems from there. And then many more foreign films were given that award. Here again, Federico. Really, thank you very much to Maurizio Riccardi and the Riccardi Archive. Here we see the great De Sica and Alberto Sordi on the set of a very important film. Alberto actually was one of the characters of many films of Federico Fellini. This is a black and white picture. I like black and white pictures very much because they bring you back to history. So it's always very nice to see black and white pictures. So thanks very much to the Riccardi Archive, and thanks for the work that they do, for the constant work they do to tell our Italy. So how important was music and the soundtrack for Federico Fellini? For Federico Fellini, soundtracks were very, very important. I might even dare to say that that was the most important thing for Federico Fellini. We all know his long-lasting collaborator of Federico Fellini, Nino Rota, Maestro Nino Rota. Whenever we hear music by Nino Rota, for example, the end of the soundtrack of 8.5 or the trumpet, I mean, these were parts that belonged one to the other. So coming after Nino Rota was very, very difficult. But then a great composer came, a great personality, orchestra director, a man who's today composed over 190 soundtracks for films, and who was awarded with an Oscar in 1999 for the soundtrack of La Vita è Bella. So, ladies and gentlemen, here with us, our dear friend Nicola Piovani, remembering Federico Fellini. What can we say about Federico Fellini that has not been said yet? I mean, the entire Italy, Europe, the planet is talking about Federico Fellini. I think that also people on Mars, actually someone on Mars is talking about the genius of Federico Fellini. Personally, I can testify to the fact that he had been endowed with great musical skills that were not verbalized. I mean, Fellini did not have such a big musical culture. He was not that able of giving technical suggestions or of providing examples of existing authors. However, he had such a musical, extraverbal, non-verbal communication that would induce you to identify the music he was looking for. And that was so easy for him. I can only tell you that like in art, Federico Fellini was capable to combine the oniric with the realistic. So the greatness of big themes and the details of very popular characters, and this with the same gaze, with the same love. And similarly, in his private life, Federico Fellini was capable of being the great maestro, so the beacon, but also to basically establish very friendly human relations that he liked so much and that we also liked very much. So thank you, Maestro. Federico would say music is dangerous. Music is dangerous because it sort of invades you. It gets inside you, and after you listen to a medley, you are no longer the same. And Nicola is currently performing all over the world and in Italy, in which he plays his soundtracks. He's very much linked to Ginger and Fred. That's the movie with whom he first worked with Federico Fellini. I forgot to ask you one important thing to you before. You worked for many years with Ennio Morricone. What did a maestro like Ennio Morricone had in particular? I had the privilege of working with Ennio Morricone on several films, fantastic films. There was even a historical TV series called The Secret of the Sahara that was so successful. And my memories of Ennio Morricone are memories of a very silent person. So he was a person whom you would always respect. And this is something that he showed me when I followed the soundtrack of Stanno Tutti Bene, that he would, Everyone is Fine, that he would work on near my house. And actually, you probably know that maestros are very dangerous people. And this is actually something that also Fellini showed during the rehearsals of his orchestra, or in orchestra rehearsal. And I remember actually when Ennio Morricone went in, I mean, he would induce silence in everybody. And during the execution, during the performance, he was so determination, and he would in a way correct any starting note that was not perfect. So a fantastic person. And then from a personal point of view, the very nice thing of him, especially in the films by Giuseppe Tornatore, he would always compose the soundtrack before the film. In certain sequences, in certain important sequences like Nuovo Cinema Paradiso, I think that everybody noticed that. I mean, everybody would notice the great emotions that he would give us. And so the sequence actually came. So, for example, I remember the last kisses in the films. Everybody remembered that scene, which will remain in the. There are 3 or 4 sequences in that film which are part of the history of cinema, but that sequence was shot and we were all touched because it was the first time that we could see it. And we were very touched by that music accompanying us. There was really fantastic emotion. I have a great memory of Ennio Morricone as the real professional of music, a real artist. Fantastic.
A great artist that will always be with us thanks to his magic soundtracks. And with this music, life can change because music surrounding you can change your life. But now, let's moved to the real house of Federico that was located on Tuscolana. So nothing about Cinecittà. Because Federico used to say, when he was asked, Maestro, where would you like to live? I have a home, I have a house. It's Theatre 5 in Cinecittà, no problem. That's where I stay because I can travel the whole world from there. I was always there, August, Christmas, all the time. So, a director and an actor that we all madly love, so extroverted, fun, nice, lovely. When he was 28 years old, Federico calls him to interpret Federico in a film called The Interview. Who is there for a video for us? Good evening, Francesca. Good evening, Rimini. I'm very sad not to be there with you, but I'm in a very Fellini place, not just Rimini, but Cinecittà. And I'm here in Cinecittà, and this is exactly where I shot some of the frames of l'intervista, the interview. I'm so tied to these places. They remind me so much of Federico. I'm not there with you. What can I tell about Federico? Well, it left such an important mark in my life. I talk about him all the time. I interpreted him when he was younger. And, I'm not from the north. I'm not from Romagna. I come from Apulli instead, from the south. But Federico had made me remove some hair because hair is always associated with people from the south. And then he bleached a bit my hair and also removed hair from my brows. And I'm a Sagittarius, but then when he introduced me to people, he said, oh, this is Sergina, little Sergio is Capricorn like me. He used to change reality. So I became a part of him somehow. And, well, apart from his cinema, but it's not up to me to remind you of the great cinema by Fellini, but he had this great ability of change reality. Well, in the light of dream, fantasy, vision, imagination, he used to make reality better or worse, but he could recreate a fictional reality that he made up. And he brought all the people around him live in this fictional reality. It was like a wizard. And this is what he left me, a wizard changing the rules of the world. And he also changed the rules of my life. I thank you, your city, very much. Francesca. Oh, that was sort of tips of the tongue, Fellini style. Thank you very much. I hope you're going to have a nice evening. All the best to you and to everybody. Oh, great, Sergio Rubini. Thank you very much. Francesca, can I say something? Can I steal a second from you? Oh, no, we are sharing time. You are the guest of honors. You can do whatever you want. Okay, I just want to link up with what Sergio Rubini said. Well, Fellini is celebrated by anybody. We almost know everything about him. But what probably few people know is that he had a wonderful and fantastic humor. He was a naturally born sort of comedian. I have an anecdote. I remember I was shooting a film and people started saying Ingmar Bergman will come to shoot a film with him. So a 3-director movie, Ingmar Bergman, Fellini, and Kurosawa. Well, maybe you don't know that, but it was one of the greatest directors ever in the world, Ingmar Bergman. At that time, I was so excited. And so, well, I know Fellini. If Ingmar Bergman comes through Fellini, I can get there and touch this god of cinema. I get to Theatre 5, and it was a crowd of people. Oh, I'm a friend. I couldn't get in. And then Ingmar Bergman arrived with his bodyguards. He entered the theater, and also there was this very mysterious morning lunch. And then I do my work, and then some people had gone away. The paparazzi, you have no idea of the chaos of that day. I get close to Theatre 5 again. There was Maurizio Men, the assistant of the director, and it was his assistant for so many years, great person. And I tell him, Mauri, so is Ingmar Bergman here? What happened? Well, I'm so eager to know what they told each other, two giants of cinema. So I just go and meet Federico and say, Fellini, so what happened with Ingmar Bergman? Are you going to shoot together? So how is he? How is he? He just looks at me and says, it's so thin, so slender. Oh my gosh, that was him. I found it beautiful. That was him. That's how he was. He somehow could bring everything back to a different dimension and to remove the mythology and legend from anything. Okay, Bergman, you mentioned a legend, and then there is Charlie Chaplin, like a first half of the history of cinema, and then Bergman, Fellini, and Kurosawa. Three historic, legendary names that will remain there forever. I have a beautiful letter that Bergman sent to Federico, telling that he had seen for a seventh time Amarcord. It was his favorite film. And Federico, together with Tonino Guerra, were able to narrate the 4 seasons of life, reaching the extreme limits of life itself and of the world. And Bergman says to Federico Fellini in this letter, I tried to do everything in order to make his Fanny and Alexandra like his own Amarcord. I tried to do my best to reproduce Amarcord in my world, but I didn't make it. So hats off. And you're also very much bound to Pupi Avati. Oh yes, I had the chance and privilege to work 4 times with Pupi Avati on 4 films. Oh, well, to me, Pupi is, I don't know if you know that, but he started his career after watching 8½. It was so influenced by 8½, that he decided after watching that movie to become a director. He was working for a frozen product company and he had a very good job, but he quit everything to become a movie director. And to me, Pupi Avati is one of the very few directors that was a dream to work with. He had everything in his mind. I almost didn't feel I was working when I worked with him. It was so relaxing to work with him. And it's very hard to get into his cinema. When I work with directors, I'm used to adapt, to change things. But Pupi has already everything in his own mind. He's so accurate about what he wants. So to me, it's so relaxing to work with him. And I think that probably today is the only Italian director who is still able to convey emotions visually. It's very rare. Oh yeah, another beautiful association. We talked about Federico and Nino Rota and the great Maestro Morricone with Giuseppe Tornatore, and he used to work with Rizzo Ortolani. Oh yeah. They worked for years and years and years. You see, when there are these great sort of couples that just end to exist because one disappears. Oh yeah, it's so sad. And when Tornatore could not work any longer with Morricone and Fellini with Nino Rota, these are small fractures that require healing a long time. You know that Pupi Avati is now shooting a film after the end of the lockdown in Ferrara. And Lei mi parla ancora, she still talks to me, based on a book by Giuseppe Sgarbi with Stefania Sandrelli, Pozzetto, Joele Dix, and the book was written by the father of Vittorio Sgarbi, but everything stems from 8,5, 8½. So please, listen carefully to what Pupi Avati says about the friend, the artist, and the man Federico Fellini. Let's listen carefully to Pupi Avati. Pupi, thank you very much for being with us during the very special evening. I know that you were eager to be there because you're a big friend of the meeting. You've come here. Oh, yes, I've joined the meeting several times with great results. Just such a beautiful, great, unique energy that I usually to soak in. And I remember sharing personal remarks with huge audiences, but still, in spite of the huge audiences, the relationship was very confidential, as if I talked to single people, individuals. And yeah, this year we have a special edition. It's special to everybody. So thanks to streaming technology, we will reach out to the world. But let's go back to our Federico. You said once that 8.5 changed the life of many people. Did this film change your life, Pupi? Oh, yes. Watching this movie changed my life. I used to travel around a lot, and I found out that especially people of my age, many of them, my colleagues the same age as me, confessed that they started working in the cinema world because they were influenced by that movie. It's like a toxic film. It's an infectious film that contains a virus, a positive virus, a good one, a benign one, not an evil one, but makes you fall in love with the cinema world and the figure of the movie director. And it was so good at narrating the movie director as a character that becomes a charismatic character. And it was not just like, as we thought, a sort of person dispatching other people. You come here, you go there. No, it was able to tell the most intimate, personal, secret, contradictory part of himself. And Marcello Mastroianni plays him, and like Robert, but just being perfectly directed. All the people watching 8.5 in those years, well, decided they wanted to become Federico Fellini themselves, as if being Federico Fellini was like a job. Okay, you come from Emilia, and Federico was born in Romagna. What's the difference between Emilia and Romagna? Well, there's a whole world, and I have such a nostalgia about the people from Romagna. I wish I was born there because I can see the difference, especially in women. Women from Romagna, and I'm talking about you as well, have this sort of mysterious force. They're so creative, fantasy-rich, but also they're able to perceive things of the world so deeply. They can face suffering and pain, anything, and they're also a big carrier of life, of joy, of celebration, of festive feelings. It's not just only through the food, the tortellini, but it's all about love, or welcoming. They express their love and affection through welcoming. When they know that a person is a good person, well, that's a sort of international password in Romagna to get doors open. I remember that every time I come to Romagna, there's such a deep sense of hospitality and welcoming that is based on this. He's a good person, so let's welcome him. Let's open our arms and offer him food and the bad things that count in life. Pupi, you're so close to Federico, not only for Via Margutta, the street that somehow got you together for so many years, but also the St. James Church, like the Church of San Giacomo of St. James, was so important to Aunt Giulietta and you as well. Oh yeah, Federico used to come from a peasant culture, as me, by the way, and had some resemblances, because usually farmers on Sundays to go to the mass just wear black trousers and white shirt without a tie, but they usually wait outside. Only the women go inside the church. So I must confess that I usually met him out of the Church of St. James. But the only day I was really, really worried, I got worried, and I called him on the phone right after. I remember entering the Church of St. James one morning, and he was there sitting all alone. And he was sitting on one of the benches, and the church was desert. A few after that, I called him, and he told me, "Oh, my brother died, Riccardo." I still have goosebumps when I think about that, because every time we used to talk, he used to talk about the relationship with my own brother, and he used to compare the relationship I have with my own brother with the relationship he had with his own brother, Riccardo. They had difficult times. They were far at some point, and at one point they had a very hard clash, and then they got close to each other again. So there was this, I wouldn't say sort of this attempt to get close again to this brother that had been far away for such a long time, and they had wasted so much time. Sorry, that was my phone ringing. I switch it off. No problem. It was 1991 when Uncle Riccardo passed away. So let's go back to Via Margutta. And why is this street so important? And on Via Margutta, there was a small room where you were among the 10 people that saw, the last film by Federico as a premiere. And I must say that there is this anecdote that is very, very close to me and dear to me. And that experience marked me so much. And that tells a lot about a great director at the end of his career. Yes, I remember I was sitting next to Sergio Zavoli, and your aunt Giulietta was there. Instead, Federico said, "Oh, be good, I'm sorry, I'm going away." And he went away. He was a little bit coward. And he left us there in the room watching his last movie. And it was still a working copy with the parts black and white, the parts in color, and proper sound editing. You could still hear the voice by Federico. You really need to be a cinema expert to understand the quality. After 15 minutes, I remember Giulietta sitting just behind me, and I remember that he gets a call, and he says, "Oh yes, they like it. So, Federico was asking if we were appreciating the film." So he called 3 times. "Oh, did they laugh? Oh, yes, they did." That's it. Okay, that is just to tell you to what extent such a great, well-known director, so successful with 5 Oscars, he should have been so self-confident, but it was depending on the feedback of 10 stupid people. We would have considered that a masterpiece, even if it would have been nothing big. But I was so touched by that. Federico Fellini was still so fragile at the end of his career. What could other director feel? Oh, and then there is another anecdote about a movie that actually Federico never made. A secret film. Oh, yes, it was a secret. It would have been so great if I really had this opportunity. It was something coming from a suggestion that I gave him when I realized, watching La Voce della Luna, the voice of the moon, that every time he was making a movie, it was like moving a building. And I remember that. And I told him in a letter, when you work, Federico, the whole cinema is working, because every time he started a film, the whole cinema industry started moving in Rome. But it was such a big effort for a man, his age, and having worked so much all his life. I think he would deserve a small film, a secret film, a film made without anybody else knowing. And he liked this idea of making a secret movie secretly, but he asked me, where can we go? People will recognize me anywhere we go, because, yeah, it's true, everybody knew him. But I think we could have fixed that. But unfortunately, well, we know he got sick, and unfortunately, we couldn't make it. Oh, yes, Federico has thought also about a movie about Dante's Inferno, and Zeffirelli got close to the project also, and 20 years after that, the Italian TV network Rai will make that possible. Well, they wanted to shoot a film about the Inferno, Dante's Inferno. I can't make it. I don't have the energy, the force, and I think it's not necessary. I would rather prefer to tell the life of Dante Alighieri, because we all hated Dante Alighieri because of the Italian education system, and it made its best, our Italian education system, to make us hate Dante Alighieri. But actually, it was such an interesting character. If you read La Vita Nova, you can really understand the level of tenderness, sensitivity of this teenager vis-a-vis this young girl that finally ends up greeting him and saying hello after 9 years of secret love by him. So this is based on the idea that suffering and pain can lead to poetry, because his life was so painful. So he can reach this high level of poetry thanks to suffering. I think that we should discover that. So the Rhine Network has finally decided to do a project on Dante. This is beautiful. We're almost celebrating his 700th anniversary. So thank you very much, Pupi, for being with us. Thank you very much. What would you like to say to your friend Federico? Maybe something you couldn't tell him because you didn't have the time to. Well, it may sound strange, but the thing that I like the most about Federico is when he used to call me at Easter to tell me Happy Easter. Nobody calls to say Happy Easter. It was the only person in the world calling you at Easter to tell you Happy Easter. I miss that Happy Easter by Federico so much. Thank you very much, Pupi. We wish you all the best, the very, very best. Thank you. A big hug to you. Goodbye to you and Federico. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Actually, when normally says, okay, we've gone... we normally do a workshop with the director, but actually we spent 13 minutes of a great workshop by Pupi Avati. He really spoke wonderful things. Plus, you can easily imagine when one works with him that, I mean, he is an intellectually refined person. And this is something that is very rare today. So thanks. Thanks, Pupi. Pupi Avati also mentioned Sergio Zavoli, who unfortunately passed away a few days ago. So we would like to say goodbye to the great Sergio Zavoli, who is now in nearby, like I say. But now we have a great host, Professor Antonio Monda. He's connected with us. Good evening, and thank you for your invitation. Thank you for being with us. Professor Antonio Monda is a professor at the Film and Television Department of the New York University, and he holds the chair of Martin Scorsese. This year is the art director for 6 years in a row at the Rome Film Festival. So thanks for participating in Federico Fellini's celebration. First of all, I would like to say that this year we will have the short movie called Fellinat at the Rome Film Festival. And then I would like to say one more thing. With the exception of Charlie Chaplin, You have Fellini, and then you have all the rest. You have great directors, but Fellini is something different. Fellini was a genius. Fellini is something mysterious, and each and every time he narrates life in a very unexpected way. And he is among the very few directors, with possibly the exception of Charlie Chaplin, that keeps us crying and laughing at the same time. Unfortunately, I had the chance of meeting him, but in a very superficial way. For example, if you can watch the Cabiria, the Nights of Cabiria, or 8½, you can cry and laugh at the same time. You can talk about lost grace or hope. You can talk about redemption or corruption. These are just some of the many topics he touched. Fellini has a gaze that can be imitated, but it is always unparalleled. Only Fellini manages to reach that level of poetry. Antonio, you have a privileged observatory, and you know that this evening we have lots of people connected from us. Unfortunately, COVID-19 did not enable us to go to the world and tell Federico, but thanks to the Rimini meeting this evening, we have people following us from 120 squares, and this is really great. So you have this privileged point of view with your students meeting Federico Fellini. What emotions do they feel? Can you tell us what happens when you show a film in black and white? And what film do you propose to your students? What happens when we're dealing with students of the 2020 who meet Federico Fellini for the first time? Well, they are always amazed by the modernity of Federico Fellini. Federico Fellini's language anticipated things that still today many directors find hard to do. It's a language that is not linked to time. I mean, his cinema always talks about topics that are never linked to current events. I mean, we were talking about redemption or grace, or the trilogy of grace, the one that starts from La Strada and then ends up with the Nights of Cabiria. I mean, 3 films, one which is more beautiful than the others. Or the Dolce Vita, that's the life of a man who gets lost and he talks about his fears. I mean, a person who has talent, who might become a great writer, but prefers actually to go to parties, for example. Or 8½, and the reflection of a mid-age man who reached everything, but actually there are dogs nearby. That's also part of life. Well, the important thing is that they don't eat us up. So the story of a man who reached everything, you probably remember that had an original title, The Nice Confusion of 8½, and I might go on. Or, for example, the very nice and touching moment of Cabiria and how Amarcord, so the nice memory of Rimini rebuilt in Cinecittà, or in Rome, with nice inventions like, for example, the subway that then ends up to the discovery of a Roman villa. Or, for example, one of the most beautiful sequences of Fellini's movies, which is that in which Peter Gonzalez, the protagonist who acts as the young Fellini, and actually he goes to San Lorenzo, and it's on the square. So that's a 12-minute long sequence in which you basically have nothing. Here lies the greatness of Fellini. I mean, you simply have a man who goes and eats, and he meets nice characters, colored characters. So in those moments, Pasolini actually made something, a negative comment on him, and would say that Fellini dances. But I'm saying this, I'm using Pasolini's quote in positive terms. What can we tell to young students who would like to become director in the future? So what is among Fellini's movies, the one that you would suggest that an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old could watch, should watch first? I think 8.5. 8.5 is the most beautiful, but probably the most accessible one is Amarcord. And the film that I actually dreamt of because of the pure art, that's The Knights of Cabiria. I would act this last one. This evening I suggested our students, the students and those who would like to learn a bit and love Fellini, that they buy a book called Fare un film, a fantastic book. And I would like to suggest another one, that's the biography of Tullio Kesic. I'm just giving these suggestions because these are the books that really tell us a lot of Federico Fellini. So what is Antonio Monda's book? What is the book that Antonio would suggest on Federico Fellini? Well, actually, you mentioned two very good books, and then there's another one edited by Tornaboni called Un regista a Cinecittà, so a director in Cinecittà. But I think the most beautiful one is the one he wrote, Fare un film, making a movie. I remember that there was a meeting, at the meeting that he describes, his meeting with Totò at the end of his career. Totò is almost blind, but he moves as if he could see. And then actually Fellini, he would tell Fellini in Neapolitan dialect, you have become a great director, but in Neapolitan dialect. Antonio, thank you very much for giving us this overview. You also gave us, we will have Fellinette. That's a wonderful tribute to Fellini, and we're happy that it will be shown there. I'm happy to participate because actually life is a party and we have to live it together. So actually, at your Rome festival in Federico's city in Rome, for the first time, we have our own cinematographer, Blasco Giurato, who actually basically marked my photograph. So I'm really honored to tell my ferry with the king of visionaries of Federico. Thank you once again, Antonio, and have a nice evening. This is really wonderful. This is such a rich evening. But now I immediately have to go and visit a dear friend of Federico Fellini, a friend who would always say that in our circus there is always a roulotte for you. That's Fellini's second house. So Fellini's second house was circus, and he would say that clowns are the ambassadors of my vision of the world. So let us now go and listen to the memories of Liana Orfei, a dear friend of Casa Fellini. This is a wonderful book entitled The Clown that is very dear for Liana. Blasco knows it well. There is a very nice dedication that Federico left her, and she wanted to share it with us. Hi, Francesca. Hello, Francesca. Hello, nice Fellinette. I would very much like to be with you in Rimini this evening. I'm here, but I'm also there with you, with my heart, with my soul, and my spirit. Thank you very much, Francesca. Thanks for giving me the chance, and above all, the honor, the great honor, to remember what Federico Fellini was for Liana, Lando, Rinaldo Orfei, for us all, circus people. We know that Federico Fellini was the biggest character who created wonderful things. He actually was loved by young people and adults at the same time, because Federico Fellini was a young person, and actually his works of art are very much liked by young people, and this is very important. Actually, for me, he was everything, because actually my cinema career is owed to him. Actually, we met for the first time during circus because he came and saw my face. He wanted to see a different face from the usual ones in cinema for a role. So he came and saw our circus performance in Rome. Actually, my face was not adequate for that film, but he became our dearest brother, our dearest friends. He would say that we were part of his family. And that was a great honor for us. Because actually he would say, Liana, Nando, Rinaldo were our own family. You also said that because once when you were a small girl, you called me Aunt Liana. This was a great joy for me. Federico Fellini was very important for my brothers, for Nando. It was a dear friend to him. And as a matter of fact, Federico wanted him to have a protagonist in his masterpiece Amarcord in the role of Pataka. Actually, he had a great satisfaction. He loved that character very much. And actually also Federico Fellini was actually a dear friend for my mother also when we were living 100 kilometers away. Actually, he would say, I'm coming to eat the tortellini of my mother, of Madame Alba. So that was a ride for her, and the same was for Rinaldo and for me, for all of us. Federico was, and still is, a very important thing, an indelible thing. Because the importance of his character for us in circus, I will always remember whenever we were in Rome with our circus, he and Giulietta would come and knock at our doors. So in Christmas morning they would come to us and wish us Merry Christmas from Federico and Giulietta. For the artists, for the foreigners, actually they would have the chance of getting to know that great personality. So this is a great personality. This was a great personality who can be very human, very natural, and give us all so much of his greatness. And then also in the evening, once the show was over, there were the rehearsals of artists who could have made a mistake, or there were, for example, the rehearsals with the animals, with the tigers, the lions, and Federico Fellini, and sometimes also Giulietta, he would transform himself. He would become another person. He would become childish, more child. Because actually this is what he told. That small child, as soon as he went to the circus, he would actually give a hand, for example, set the chairs or arrange things in order to have a free ticket to go and see the show. Actually, this applied not only to our circus, but to any circus. And then the small child, Federico, after seeing the show of the first evening, every evening he would actually basically enter the circus and would see the show every day as long as circus was in town. So this is just to show you what circus was for Federico, and this is what he showed in his works. There was a great character. There was a discussion that we had in an interview. He said, well, Federico Fellini was so much for circus. And actually his reply was if the circus had not been there, well, probably also Federico Fellini would have not been there. So this is just to say that Federico Fellini managed to show the good and the bad things of circus. The great Federico Fellini is currently directing his most beautiful and most spectacular movie together with Giulietta, who joined him after some months, and together with my brothers Nando, Rinaldo, who are certainly laughing and remembering the wonderful shows when we would all together go to the Cesarina and eat tortellini and lasagna all together, remembering how beautiful it was to be together and what joy we had in living this emotion. I would like to thank you, Felinette. Thank you very much, Franceschina. And I would like you to give a great hug and a big kiss to all our dear Rimini friends. And I would like to thank you in particular for the great joy you gave me to express, even with little words, to express what I feel for Federico, for Giulietta, and also for you, because you are my family. Thank you. Bye-bye. And bye-bye, dear friends. Thank you, Liana. This is really a special evening. I mean, all of these things, these great friends, these great characters. I mean, Liana Orfei is a pillar in the circus world all over the world, and they have all managed to, I mean, share with us their memories. I mean, not everybody is capable of actually showing and telling these things. Actually, I call Liana Orfei Aunt Liana, because actually I've managed to access a circus ever since I was a child. I was only terrorized by the dwarf that there was at the entrance. And at the circus, actually, Antonio Monda gave this announcement. I could not give it. And actually, our Felinette went there. So what did we experience there? Actually, I wanted to anticipate Antonio Monda, because when we say that actually genius can be inherited and passed to other generations, well, that's true. I worked with you for this short movie. Like I said before, there are very few people who are capable of visually conveying emotions. I think that this is the most difficult thing to do in cinema, in the cinema world. So with this short movie, which is a real jewel, and those who watch this actually agree with me on that. There are some important personalities who had the chance to see the initial copy. So everybody who watched it and who are now accustomed at seeing any type of video, at the end of the short video, were touched. They would immediately wanted to talk, to break an emotion in order to show that they had been so touched. So having worked with you was a reason for happiness for me, was a reason for joy, and it gave me the possibility that also, I mean, working with your uncle gave me. Actually, I'm not saying this just to please you. What I'm saying to you is really, I mean, it's true. So I'm very happy that I helped you in this experience, because you were able to visualize in such a sweet way these images. And it had never happened to me to actually work on an artwork with such a great passion. We shot it actually in 12 hours. Please, the secret, you should never say the number of hours. Actually, the secret of works, actually, whenever you're asked how long did it take you to shoot the movie, you should never ask 12 hours. You should always say 2 weeks. We are talking about the fact that when I thought about the tribute that I could pay to the king of visionaries that actually spread so much powder of stars when I was born in Bologna, I once read a book by Tullio Kesic, and he criticized the heirs of Fellini. Actually, you do not get a driving license to become the heir of a famous personality. It's just life. And the world is always there to criticize you. So it's not easy at all to be the children of a given personality or the nephews of another. So you have to be very cautious, because you know that you will be much more criticized. So I thought that I could start from a dreaming cardboard that was actually a painting. a drawing that he had called the Fellinette, and so I thought that I could basically animate that young girl with the time machine, turn her into a cartoon, and then into an animation movie, and then actually make it into a magic box circus, like was this for Uncle Federico. And then everything is magic. I mean, I had the chance of working with Milena Vukotic, Marescotti, Busco, with an extraordinary team of young people dealing with animation movies that actually did excellent work, starting from the drawings of Federico Fellini. So, as life is a party and we have to live it together, we look forward to seeing you all from the 120 squares in the world at the Rome Festival in October, from the 15th to the 25th of October in Rome, to watch this wonderful movie. So I was honored to have my debut with you, Blasco. That was a pleasure. And I'm saying this because all the young people working on that stage would say that actually we could learn from you and see you as an example. So thank you for this. Now we have yet another surprise. There's a very famous director. He's a visionary. We are at the end of this overview of this Fellini film. Well, this director met Federico on a stage on Voce della Luna, the Voice of the Moon, and he served as an actor there. So let's meet Matteo Garrone. Well, I feel a little bit embarrassed to talk about a genius like Federico Fellini. I will only tell you about my first meeting with him. I was 18 years old, and I happened to work for 2 weeks in The Voice of the Moon as an extra. And so the same did also with Roberto Benigni. So on that occasion, I had the chance to meet the genius of Fellini as well as the genius of Roberto Benigni, with whom back then actually I didn't know that I wanted to be a director, but I was sure, I was aware of the fact that I was working on a stage with two geniuses, with two of the most important personalities of contemporary art. So I was there full of admiration, admiring Fellini directing us all. He probably might have even told me something on what I should have done. But I don't remember if he told me anything. I might have invented that. But I like to imagine that actually he also directed myself. And then, like I said, I didn't think back then that I could have worked as a director. But I was there watching him while he was directing. I remember a square full of extras. And he would serve as an orchestra director. He would have fun, speak. And he was very strong, full of energy, he was very charismatic. And that was impressed. That impressed me a lot. As a director myself, I've always felt admiration for his genius, but I have always paid attention not to make mistakes. I've always tried not to imitate Federico Fellini. So I've tried to learn his lesson on cinema, which is linked to the fact that we always have to interpret reality, that we should always bring reality into another dimension. I've always paid attention to expression in general, expression also from a visual or pictorial point of view. And I've always paid attention also to not imitating Federico Fellini, because I think that he cannot be copied or imitated. His style is so personal that I believe that in the history of cinema, all those who tried to imitate Fellini have always ended badly. So I have his book, Fare un film, so making a movie on my desk with all the notes that I took during the years. I know his films very well. His movies are all part of me, and probably when I direct a movie, I feel very much his legacy. But I always try to pay attention and not imitate him. I simply admire his genius. So greetings to everybody and thank you. Thank you, Matteo.
Well, to me right now, Matteo Garrone is the most visionary director ever. I love him, and is going to join in Bari B-Fest with the friend Felice Laudadio, and he will be there with the Roberto Benigni, and they will be awarded a very beautiful prize. And now let's listen to Paolo Virzi, who is also a great illustrator. He created the Fellini 100 logo, where he took inspiration from the image of Fellini as a tamer. Let's listen to Paolo Virzi and let's have a flavor of a new generation of admirers of Fellini. So good evening, friends of Rimini. Good evening, Francesca. We're very happy to greet you and to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the birth of the greatest maestro ever. And his films educated so many movie directors. They are part of the world heritage, and they also mirror our deepest soul as artists, as people, as Italians, because really he was like a wizard and a psychotherapist, and unveiled our deepest identity as Italians in its best, worst, funniest, most miserable aspects. His films are still so modern, they will never get old. Jacopo is 11 years old, and he recently discovered Fellini's films and he fell in love with them. Oh yes, I love them. My favorite ones are I Vitelloni and La Dolce Vita. Well, I Vitelloni I can understand. It's a very funny movie. There is Alberto Sordi, but what about La Dolce Vita? It's so strange. It's such a dramatic film, La Dolce Vita. Well, it starts very, very joyfully, but then it turns and completely inside out. Oh yes, at the very end, Marcello Mastroianni becomes almost insensitive, but I really like the plot and the narrative. I also loved Amarcord. That is very, very fun. It's hilarious. Wonderful. You see, Federico Fellini's cinema conquered Jacopo's heart, and so I'm sure that it will passionate younger spectators in the future as well. So lots of love to all of you, and long life to Federico's cinema. Oh, what a nice video from Virzi home with his child. And now we have a friend who is connected with us, Eugenio Cappuccio. Good evening. Good evening from Rimini. Oh, wow, he's connected. Eugenio Cappuccio is a friend. In 1985, you met for the very first time in Cinecittà Uncle Federico. What do you remember of that encounter? Well, that was the beginning of my career and history as a director. It was a watershed to me. So, let's say, entering the cathedral of Cinecittà, that marked also the entrance into this difficult, wonderful world. Oh, there's a maestro next to you. Ciao, Blasco. Hello, Blasco. And Blasco knows far too well what it means to have these kind of encounter with cinema when you're young. And with Fellini, what can I say? It leaves such a deep mark. I really loved what Matteo Garrone said when he says that he still remembers these experiences as an extra on the set of The Voice of the Moon. I remember watching him there on set, and he says that this memory is inside him, trying to somehow tame him, because he was like a supernova, Federico. He was so powerful, and powerful things can also annihilate you and destroy you. So, well, to me as well, it was necessary to keep a certain balance. So in 85, you worked on Ginger and Fred. You recently made a beautiful documentary film on Fellini Fine Mai, just because of this 100th anniversary. What did you want to show with this documentary film, Eugenio? Well, I think I can start really from the title, because the title contains memory, but also it's past-centered, but also future-centered. And Pupi was one of my producers, together with his brother Antonio. And it's about such dense and intense memories that left such a deep mark on people. But this is also about the future, because, well, we had the chance to come across this extraordinary star, and, well, our miserable Earth life will follow its course. But his work, Federico's works, will be eternal. This documentary film is really about this. I wanted to show to what extent Fellini's heritage is timeless. And being timeless is like infinity, it's eternal. Well, when you met my uncle Federico, he loved you right from the beginning, because you reminded him of himself when he was younger, because you are very good at drawing, and also your looks. I mean, the same colors, same hair, same eyes, and he really saw himself in you. And he also was your best man at your wedding. Oh, wow. It was unique, one-off. So many people would like to have Fellini as best man. But what would be your tip for a young person watching for the first time a Fellini movie? Well, to me, I don't know. I would say Casanova, with an extraordinary Donald Sutherland. Yeah, I think it's a film that's a cutting-edge film. It tells man as few films do. You mentioned Bergman and the extraordinary relationship between those two. I think that the most intense film psychologically, spiritually, is Casanova. And I think that today, even more so, it should be watched and rewatched and rewatched. Thank you very much indeed for sharing with us with the evening of celebration. I would like to thank the mating and Otello and you, Francesca. Thank you. Goodbye, big brother. And congratulations on your lovely Fellinette, Blasco. So we have come to the end. So already, yeah, that's it. We have come to the end. Yeah, it has gone so quickly, but we have to stick to a lot of time. It was a beautiful long evening. I have a little gift for the friends of the meeting. I would like, first of all, to say goodbye to all of you with the very last shot that a great photographer, portrayer, to me the greatest, Elisabetta Catalano, who passed away in 2015, great friend of Federico from the set of 8.5 on. She was also one of the main characters, was able to somehow catch Federico in the most important moments of his life with the most meaningful shots. Federico used to say, I will always be, I'm in the shots of Elisabetta. Look at her portraits, because when I'm with her, I'm not tense. And this is the photo that Elisabetta took of Federico just before getting his 5th Oscar that he got in '93 for his career, lifetime achievement. And this is the most beautiful way to me to say goodbye to all of you. We tried to tell you Federico tonight through the voices of his friends, of his somehow his, and I want to leave you with this picture, and I would like to thank the meeting once again. And I was like a little fairy. I flew all over the world like the Federico in 8.5 who flies among the clouds. I want to leave you with the testament, the will of Federico. And he makes Ivo Salvini say, beautifully played by Roberto Benigni, I do believe that if there was a bit of silence, if we were all to be silent for a second, maybe we could understand something. Thank you, Blasco. Goodbye, and thank you